And yes, so we are on Facebook Live. Welcome, everybody. Our show today is in partnership with the African Motion Film Festival, which takes place in Glasgow and Edinburgh. And the dates of the festival from the 15th to the 31st of October. Really very exciting. We know that Glasgow at the moment has COP26 happening. So there's a lot of activity around climate change and what people are doing. But for today, our focus is the African Motion Film Festival. And we are talking about how people have had to transition as filmmakers, producers, storytellers, and performers in particular. So the days of just going on set and performing has somewhat changed because it seems that the screen and the screen that we're on right now has really become the most important interface. And I've actually heard for Leila and Karine, I've heard that many people have done facelifts because now they're watching themselves all the time. So they're like, oh my goodness, look what I look like. So
Again.
imagine for the actors having to see themselves in this way. So Justin, can we see the trailer?
491 days. Prisoner number 1323/69 shares with the world Winnie Mandela's moving and compelling journal, as well as some of the letters written between affected parties at the time. Readers gain insight into the brutality she experienced, her depths of despair, as well as her resilience and defiance under extreme pressure.
I'm sorry for interrupting. Just carry on.
As in, what I want to tell you is that.
Do your thing and do mine.
Thank you, Justin. I love this festival. I've been coming here for a few years. And what is so exciting is the different venues that they use. So you can watch the feature films, of course, in cinema, and then it was all these lovely little venues where they go into a bar, into a school, into a rec center. But now that there's COVID, we can't go anywhere. All we're doing is being online. And so this has been really quite a difficult transition, I think, for many people. Karine, in your case, I know that with your festival, you worked so hard during the Cannes Film Festival. You create the Africa Cannes, really, which is an important space for people, the African Pavilion. And do you want to share a little bit about what that was like, the transition because of the pandemic, the transition from real live interaction? You're on mute, Karine.
Yes, in fact, we did very well the first year. So we were, in a good move and we were already thinking about 2020. And it was also the year of Africa in France. So it would have been great. Everything was in my mind, great getting. And then 2020, okay, cancelled, completely cancelled. Okay, so we said, okay, never mind, 2021 is going to be great because people will want to go back. And then 2021, I think in January, I decided, okay, we won't be able to go because it means that we will go very last minute. And because we didn't know if it was really going to happen or not. And I have never done any event online. You know, when you participate to a Zoom call, then I learned there is nothing to do with an online event, because we had 10 days, 41 events in the 10 days, going like from 9 o'clock, because we had to cover the globe. So
Yes.
we had to go from 9, I think the last one ended up at midnight, you know, one of the last. So, and I was on almost all of the events during 10 days. And the thing about online is that I began discussing with people who had done it before. And then they began telling me about, okay, you need a Zoom producer. I said, what's that? I can just, you know, put, open the Zoom, and then why do I need? And my God, I found someone. We were so lucky to have her, because otherwise you panic. Let's say something, you don't see one of the panelists online, you get cut off, something happens. And I know that if it was only me, I would have just said, okay, what I'm supposed to do, you know?
Absolutely.
So, yes, it's a complete different way of doing things. And I think we did pretty well, because we had this Zoom code producer. But of course, I mean, it was great, but I hope I don't have to do it again. You know, I do hope we can go back to normal and meet people in person. And because you still have, like you said, you talk, the person hasn't finished talking. Sometimes there is some lapse between the, you know, and I mean, it doesn't look or feel so natural. You can make it as natural as you can, but it's not the same.
I just asked Justine to bring up your website, but I think we'll go deeper into the website in a short while. I just wanted that transition. So I want Justine to show us the trailer of the film that we're supposed to discuss today, which is the Kenyan film, and everything was online. So part of that conversation about how do you do this when it's online. Justine, may we see that, please?
You have all been sent here by the courts because they found that you have a problem with anger. And I'm here to help you learn how to deal with that anger. Are we together?
This is ridiculous. I'm surrounded by violent thugs.
Who are you calling a thug? Foma, who are you calling a thug?
Everybody, please, let's just calm down. Okay, let's calm down. Louis, I can see you stretch.
I walked right up to Bonnie's face, looked at him straight in the eye, and I gave him one correct slap and boom!
I was so angry, and out of the corner of my eye, I saw a big stone, and before the officers could do anything, I grabbed it and threw it at her face.
Good God.
We try to live good lives, but the city spits us out every day like cockroaches.
Close your eyes. And now put the palms of your hands on your face and start massaging those creases out slowly.
Go back to your stupid little fights with your band of thieves and continue drinking your little chai in your garden. We don't want you here anyway.
Who the hell do you think you are talking to me like that?
You people have silenced us for long enough.
You people? You people?
Yes.
I am not you people.
Yes, you are.
Safe space, safe space. Remember what I said earlier, the therapy takes place in a very sacred and safe space, okay?
Very interesting. So, Karen, you said you did manage to watch the film. Just in terms of, and because of what you just said about trying to get onto Zoom and making sure you have a Zoom producer, what were your impressions?
Oh, I really loved it. I watched it with Paula, who works with me, and we really enjoyed it because Zoom has become so natural in our life. Like, okay, you are watching a real thing, you know, when you are Zoom, like now we are watching something that is really happening. So you feel that it is exactly the same, that it's really happening, you know, these people talking together. And yes, you are part of the movie because you are watching people interact. You know, I really enjoyed it. You know, at the beginning, I thought it was a little bit slow, but very at the very beginning. And after that, you go, okay, what is it going to happen? What is going to happen with this one? Why doesn't he want to say what he has to follow this management, this anger management? Yeah, you really spend a good time watching that, definitely.
Leila, you are part of this production. This is what you do. You're a producer, you're an editor, you work with performers, you work with crew, you work with talent. What has that transition been like? Before you tell me about your feelings on this film, just talk to us a little bit about your experiences during COVID.
I mean, it's been crazy. It's been a test of everything that you thought you knew and everything that you've thought you've built and thought you've learned. And I think for me and for my company and us as an industry, it's really been a call to evolve, a call to adapt, and try and still find our relevance within the world, within this new dispensation and age, and try to figure out ways of creating new content, of creating new ways of expressing our reality, because really what has shifted is our reality. So now, you know, you start looking at the stories you wanted to tell, and you start going, how do I tell those stories in the same way when everything that we've known has changed? And I think, yeah, I think it's a brilliant time. I think despite all the fear and heartache and pain and trauma, what it is for the creative sector is a push to create newness. And this movie, also speaking to that, is, I think, the most obvious example of literally that. Like the ways in which we relate are shifting and changing, and therefore the ways that we document that have to change as well.
Absolutely. And I think, as you said, it's almost a trauma, but we're overcoming it because it's, yes. Karen, you were saying, this is real life. This is what we are now. We are Zoom. You know, we see each other in a screen. I like Justine had said to us once, she was like, I saw people in real life. I saw their legs because we don't see this part of the person, right? So I wanted to ask you, Leila, as a producer and working on film, when you look at this film from Kenya, of course, it's our reality now. We're all in the Zoom, and whether we're in landscape or, you know, depending on what size of the camera we take or of the photograph of the image, how do we make that real? How do we make that part of our everyday?
Well, I think just to go a little bit back in terms of my experience now of content and how we are consuming content, what's been a fantastic shift due to this whole process is that the world is now accessing content in a different way and in a more urgent way, because that's how now we gain access to the real world. And I think if you look specifically at the continent, more than ever before, is the African content in demand. Streamers are coming in here. There's so many platforms that are demanding authentic African narratives. And I think that's been an interesting sideline occurrence alongside the pandemic. And this film for me is a great example of that. It's an example of how accessible now other parts of the continent are for us as an African community, as well as the Pan-African community, and now globally, where there isn't sort of somebody dictating exactly how we need to be represented, but we're getting the opportunity to say, this is who we are and we'll represent ourselves the way that we want, and the global audience are consuming that. So yeah, I think it's an exciting time, and I think the film being selected to discuss today is perfect because it is in its most quintessential exactly what we're talking about, exactly that evolution.
I want us to watch your trailer, Leila, and I want you to talk to us about this, because even though you were right in the middle of a pandemic, you actually had performers. You were on set and you were with actors, and this thing happened. So Justine, please, if we could see it, and then you'll talk to us about it, Leila.
Okay, no problem.
Ka dinao tse di phatsimang baagi le mebuso megolo. Ba lebeletse gore ga le di
Kuyofika ilanga mhla umlingo uyobuya emhlabeni. Ngonyaka lwendodakazi yakho le-18 isiprofetho sizovuleka. Lokho kuzoba ukubhubha komhlaba.
Watsiba sitlhabelo se se senyakang.
tlhaloganyo ya mototlegi wa rona ya koko masile le mokgang wa go a bannegi ba tšhabe ba gadikile boko ba
Indumiso zegazi ziphawula ukubhanga kwayihluya.
Sisibonele ngalakwethu ngawufike sishayisa handle umthetho wesithembu ibusuka mama bobutsenze ngonhlongo yakhathi.
Wow, Leila, that is just fantastic.
I hope it played okay on your side because my internet was slow and I was like, oh my gosh. And it's also an offline. So it's one of the first viewers of that. Yeah, it was an incredible thing to embark on during a pandemic.
I guess it was, yeah.
Yeah, we were actually...
Talk to us about the story and the process.
Okay, so my company is called Yellowbone Entertainment, which I co-own alongside Jamil XD Kubega. And our primary focus has always been on feature films. And I think, well, luckily for us, we chose to adapt and move into television just before the pandemic. So this was our first foray into TV. And I think that was a good thing because it was evident that at least for the next few years, that's to be the primary medium of consumption for viewers. So we really wanted to bring Jamil's aesthetic and cinematic aesthetic into the South African TV space. And I think for him and myself, identity has been a very important aspect that we want to explore in our work. And so that's how Blood Psalms was birthed, really, was looking at a history that you can't possibly trace and saying, what does an Africa look like that is 11,000 years old? And how does that Africa then define an African viewer or an African child in the way that they look at themselves and construct their own identity? So for us, it was going, let's give heroes, let's depict magnificence, let's depict an empire, so that our viewers can draw from that. And then 3 weeks before we started shooting, we went into national lockdown. And because it wasn't a commissioned piece, the onus was on us to make the decision whether to stop the project entirely or hope for the best and continue. So we were ultimately the first production in South Africa to go back to shooting in May 2020, last year.
Karine, you had a look at this as a first trailer. What are your thoughts? You know, for me, I'm very biased because Yellowbone, Layla, and Jamil, you know, they're just like the best for us from South Africa. But I want to hear what you have to say.
I mean, really, I liked it. It reminds me somehow of, you know, what's the name? Black Panther, you know, because it's a dynasty, it's a princess, etc., with a flair of fantasy, of ancient stories. So I really liked it. I wonder, when can we watch it?
So it's releasing in February next year.
In February, okay. It will show in on Showmax, on TV in South Africa.
It will show on Showmax and on Canal Plus. Yeah, and then we're still now at the moment looking for European and North American distribution, as well as the rest of the world.
Okay, I can help with that.
Okay,
Karine is a distributor, Layla, so definitely she can help, and she's sitting in Paris at the moment.
Yeah, I have a distribution company in the US, and as Pavillon Afrique, I'm also in contact with quite a few distributors or platforms. Would be happy to, you know, I can introduce you to with and see what happens.
Yeah, no, that would be fantastic. That would be
because I'm sure, you know, we need to bring this movie everywhere so everybody can see, okay, what is the new South African stories with talents are doing. This is what we do at Pavillon Afrique, you know, just give more.
Fantastic. That would be incredible.
Yeah.
Yes, okay. I actually thought this was going to be an important connection for the two of you. In terms, yes, especially from the distribution side. So I think, Karine, that's really what I want us to talk about, because as Layla is saying, you know, we were having to adapt. We consuming content differently. Somehow, I think Netflix has made us see things in a different way, the streaming spaces that are now available. But I really want us to consider, what do we as Africans, where do we place our space? Where do we create the content that we know we can produce? Where do people find it? And how are we going to be able to support each other? So with the work that you are doing, Karine, we're going to bring up your website again, but talk to us about what are the opportunities for us.
Okay, really, Pavillon Afrique is a tool that we want people to use, you know, because what we do is to bring together the value chain of the film industry. Maybe there may be producers, directors, technicians, states, because they are part of what, you know, can help producing in the country. And we bring this all together. And it means that it helps people connect, because sometimes, you know, just, do you know this person? Do you know this other person? And then this person can bring you to another level. And the fact that we are Pavillon Afrique, it means that when people come to us, wherever they are from, because we notice that people come from us from India. For example, about 2 weeks ago, I had you know, contact by someone from India saying, okay, we want to do something in Ethiopia, No, in Djibouti, can you help? Someone else for Argentina, we want to do something in Uganda, you know, and it's not like we're going to stay like only with Africa. We want to open Africa to the world, but in a way that we keep we have the high hand on what we want and want to where to go, because we cannot give, you know, the keys to other people who would take advantage, and then they will just use the content, use the talents, and the money will go everywhere else except Africa. You know, so it means that you have, I'm very proud, I always tell it, so if you've heard it already, I'm sorry about that, but for our online event this year, we got participants from 64 countries over 5 continents. So you see the reach. So when you think about Africa, you think about the diaspora. It means that we are everywhere. And if we find someone in each of these countries who says, okay, I can open this market to you, I can help for this, I can be instrumental in doing so, it means that we are no longer confined in the boundaries of the continent, or even of each country, but we can go much further. And I can't see why, you know, the Indians, we have Bollywood all over Africa, and it's not the reverse. The reverse is not true, you know? So now when you have an Indian person say, okay, I want to shoot something in Djibouti, we have to keep the relationship going. And this is what I do, you know, keeping relationships. So one day, if I can tell, okay, you've done this there, maybe you can help with a movie that would bring together India and Africa a little bit more, and you know, have people collaborate. So it's a win-win situation. This is what we want. We don't want people to say, okay, like nobody is a messiah, because you know, nobody. We cannot expect someone to be so fond of what we do that they will do that for our own sake. We have to really decide where we want to go, and to which extent we want to collaborate, and do it on our own terms.
Yeah.
And I will always say that, okay, just don't give people the keys to your future.
Thank you, Karine. I think that is really important. Leila, I want us to just look at the Dubai Expo, if Justin's able to bring up the link, because I know that you were there as Yellowbone, and I was part of being invited anyway. But what was the experience, and how did they receive South Africa's content?
I think it was fantastic. Dubai is really spectacular in terms of their ambition, in terms of bringing, you know, their vision to bring the world together and to be a hub of innovation for the global market. And we were there as part of kind of a showcase of what South Africa has to offer in terms of film, obviously, as well as talent, as well as entertainment and investment. And well, firstly, the expo site itself is bigger than the Vatican, and they built it in just a few months. So it's really quite spectacular to see that. And also the countries that are showcased there are predominantly, like, they've given really a far bigger platform to a section of countries that they call opportunity. And South Africa falls under that section, where it's looking at opportunities, looking at the future, and it's looking at which countries and which markets are the kind of most watched, or most to watch in terms of their ability to innovate and their ability to create newness. And I think South Africa was really specifically focused on within the expo. And yeah, we got to preview Blood Psalms, this 11-part series there as part of the showcase, which was really phenomenal. I think fantastic, because it's indicative of the scope and scale that we were able to achieve, as well as clear sign that we were able to construct ways of working under the pandemic safely and still being able to execute to a certain global standard. So yeah, it was a really good opportunity.
Yes, thank you.
And I heard that there will be a film festival, an African film festival in Dubai next year, I think.
Yes,
it will be the first one. Be the first one.
Michael Parrish was trying to do that from the African filmmakers. Just I don't know if you can find the link that Michael sent to us. It's on the AFC account. I'll just try to pull it up and forward it to you. And maybe we could show that that's true. So what do you think about that, Justin? And I think, Karin, you can jump in as well. We're talking about opening borders, but we're also talking about the fact that South Africa or Africa, in terms of content, is also a kind of dumping ground. It's also a space where not necessarily the innovation that we know we can do and are capable of is not really that's going out, but rather people are trying to dump whatever they can on us. What would you say about that, Leila?
In terms of how do you mean the dumping ground?
You know,
in terms of just
for us as particularly in the children's context, for example, instead of producing content for children, we're finding that we take content from everywhere else and just dump it onto our children in Africa. So there isn't support for content. There isn't an investment in production because you kind of like, well, just bring it in. So I'm not.
Yes, no, exactly. I do agree with that. And I think that's something that we're all fighting really hard to shift. Because what I did notice also in terms of the expo itself, what we presented to the world was primarily entertainment in terms of our talent, in terms of our singing and dancing and arts and crafts. And a lot of the discussion was like, yes, you seem like a really fun country. But where do we look at the economic viability of investing in our own identity, our own narratives, and our own businesses? And I think that's definitely, you've hit the nail on the head in terms of what it makes you start thinking about. Because as a company owner and as a producer, what you start needing to think about is, where does the product go? Where's the distribution? Who owns that distribution? Who has access to that distribution? And then also, where are you drawing your finance from? And as we look at the advent of streamers coming in, it's very exciting, but it's very specifically controlled still in terms of what stories you're able to tell and how you're able to tell them. So yeah, we're in a space of expansion and evolution, but it's also a space of us having to question who owns this and who's accessing this.
Yeah, precisely. And Karin, I want you to come in there because I hear what you're saying about, you know, whoever they are and they want to partner with us and we should partner with them. And it's important. And I agree that those partnerships are important, but how fair are they and how equal are they? And, you know, as producers, you're always fighting for that space, aren't you, Leila? Because, you know, who brings the money decides how you spend it, etc. Yeah. Karin?
Yeah, and in fact, I think this is where the government comes in as well, because they have to really promote their talents and defend them. You know, when they prepare the legal environments. And I saw the UNESCO launch a report about two weeks ago about the the film industry in Africa, and I think it was 59%. I remember right, is 59% of the countries didn't have a way to get the figures about the industry, because they didn't really have an industry. They make films, but it means that there is no strategy and no accountability and no way to measure, and which is most important. So this is the kind of tool you have. This report now is to know what the companies or production companies who come over, let's say in South Africa, what value do they bring to the country? And in regards to what is done in the country, what value does it bring back after it's monetized, these kind of things. And let's remember that Africa is a continent that makes everybody dream about, So in the past up to now, it's was about what we had, like gold, diamonds, etc. But now we are back. Leila, you must have seen now in Dubai, they have also the oil, but 90% of their economy is based on services. It's not based on the minerals or the oil they have. And now Africa, people come to Africa for the talents they have in entertainment. And well, I will be blunt. Okay, we don't want to get exploited again. Okay, we want real fair partnerships. And it means that it brings something to the country. It brings something to the producer, to the director who is in the country, so he can really be better each year. Because if he always needs someone else to get to help him, doing 10 or 20 years, it doesn't work that way. He has to produce things that will bring him more money so he can finance more and be less dependent on other people, on other countries, on other production houses. I don't know, Leila, what you think about it, but I guess you don't want always people to tell you, okay, I'm bringing much of the money, so you'll have to change your, the way you plan to do things.
Absolutely. No, and I agree with you, but also I respect people who bring money. I think they definitely have a say. I think what gets scary is when it's a collective, when it's a mass movement, when the same people are dictating for many, many different projects how those stories should be told. Then I think it becomes a little bit like, yes, we don't want the same thing to happen to us again.
Yeah. So
I'm asking Justine to bring up the Luxor Film Festival website only because Luxor kind of wanted to be seen as a breakaway from the broader Cairo International Film Festival, because they wanted to focus on Africa, as they said. And so they're going to have the 11th edition. And during Luxor next year, we also want to launch the African Film Festival Association. So this is also something that we're trying to do, Karine, all of us together, so that we can have a focus on Africa. As we have the aim right now, the African Motion Film Festival. But some of the African festivals in Europe, outside of Africa, seem to do better. They seem to have better support. They seem to have better resources. And I think this is part of the challenge that we're having. So I bring up Luxor because I know there is a very strong focus on Africa. Africa in Motion Film Festival, which is fantastic. And the UK will support. There are several African festivals in the UK, but we don't have the same kind of resource when we talk about our continent. And this is really a struggle for us, for those of us who have been around for so long. So Karine, I come back to you about that, but Leila, because you're a producer, so your thing is about getting your films into these festivals. That's important for you. It's getting it to the audience. What happens beyond? Does it filter down, and do you get back, in terms of the money side?
Oh, not yet. But I think we started our company really on the brink of a transition. And the first few films that we made was just prior to this transition happening, where really, if all resources had been exhausted, there were only so few people who were willing to finance South African content. And certainly in our country, besides the government, it was only really MultiChoice. And we did our first two films with them in a certain kind of a structure where it was a pre-sale, but we also were like, okay, there's no other option. This is where our audience is. And then you had this influx of people wanting the African audience, wanting to to be able to capture the African audience, but we'd already like lost our African audience and we're looking for global sales. So for us, it was more about building prestige. It was about garnering awards. We did have both of those films with South Africa's Oscar entry in 2019 and 2020. So in terms of that, it really gave us a platform now to be at the forefront of African content creation in this new dispensation. But it was a learning curve, and we have not yet seen material economic return of the films that we've made.
Karine, have you found that there are African films that are doing well at the box office? So besides the cultural good to have, you know, win the award, it's the money that people are talking about.
Yeah, but I think that most of the time, a lot of African, well, some African content gets awards, a lot of awards, but when it comes to really, you know, paying, it doesn't as much as it could, you know, but there are a few ones, of course, which are really doing well, because I was reading something like, there were now in Nigeria, for example, there are some contents that really compete with big Hollywood blockbusters. When, you know, it's a shift. But also, you can find that in the UNESCO report as well. In most of the theaters in Africa, they don't really. You can't see really, you can watch a lot of African films, especially in French-speaking Africa. You know, they built a lot of new theaters, but most of the time you can only see blockbusters and very few African content. So I think it's something like the government should put into place is, okay, you have to have a certain percentage of African content, because here in France, we do protect our culture a lot. You know, this is why French culture is everywhere, you know, because they help a lot. And they, for example, if you're Canal Plus and any other platform or TV, they pay something that goes to the filmmakers, you know? So you have to protect, because we are not as strong as the US or whatever. So you have to have laws that would say, okay, you can have, let's say, 70% of foreign content, but then you have to have 30% of African content, because if you don't, and then if there is a sort of understanding between different countries, you can say, okay, 30% will go for, you know, this region or these 2 or 3 countries we partner with, and so that at least the African content can get some money from Africa. You know, so they think, okay, we are going to, because they can't. And I learned something very recently, is that most of the countries or TV, I don't know, give the movies for free to Africa.
Yes, that's what I was saying. I said that they dump content because they really just want African audiences to receive it. And that's part of the problem. I want to just show us Michael's link that he created, which was part of starting the Pan-African Film Festival in Dubai. Thanks, Justin.
I am yet to see the family of yours that deserves the respect you breed!
Justine. So Leila, I just wanted to talk to you. If you look at those huge screens that are happening, you know, that people, there's a cinema culture. Right now, they've just finished in Dubai, the Meta Cinema event. You know, it's a huge event. They talk to all these cinema holders. So whether we're talking about India, where you know you have millions of people going to a cinema to watch. And we're saying, though, there's a shift in the way that people are receiving content. What do you think in terms of South Africa? Because we find that people are not really going to the cinemas. It's too expensive, I think. What has been the experience for you as a company?
Well, I think, yeah, that shift has been happening for quite some time. I think pre-democracy, there was an element of having cinemas be accessible, even in the townships and in, you know, those areas for people of color. And I think that accessibility did shift. And I really believe that we are the habits that we have been kind of brought up on. Cinema is not a part of our current reality. It's not a part of the masses reality. It's not a part of our cultural experience and how we want to consume things. And I think that's why South Africa has been so interesting in terms of its successful telenovela space, similar to Latin America, where that has always been the element that has grabbed our mass market. And now I think as filmmakers, we had these aspirations of premiering in cinema and you know, making it on the box office. But I think it's become, for now, I think it's a reality that that's not the current way to go. And I think filmmakers are realizing that they're losing so much money on trying to capture a cinema market here. And what we really have to do is adapt to what our audience wants. And that might shift. In 10 years, cinema might be the preferred model or means. But at the moment, I think we need to really, really try and get in touch with our audience and their culture and what they want and how they want to consume things.
So do you think it's mobile and digital, that's really where we're at?
I think it's something we're trying to be at, but then we have the question of accessibility to data, accessibility to those kinds of resources. So I think socioeconomically, we have a long battle ahead of us, but we can say some things are truth. And some things are truth is that people do watch Mzansi Magic, people do watch SABC, people do watch certain things and make sure that they have access to those things. So I really do think that we need to train our audiences, develop our audiences, but also make it easier for them to access the content. And I think that's the primary factor.
Karine, how is it in France? Are people still going out and watching films in a cinema?
Right now, after the pandemic, yeah, but they said they lost around 30% because mostly probably because people were not vaccinated because they are not allowed to go. But still, I heard yesterday that, you know, there are some blockbusters which went really well in terms of audience, a few movies, but, you know, those 30% who can't go anymore, it's sort of, you know, it makes a difference for the cinemas. But I think that people who are used to go to the movies will still go, because right after it opened, people just flooded there because, you know, it's a different way of watching something, you know, while you may watch on your computer, on TV, but it's not at all the same experience. Let's say a movie, I think a movie like yours, Leila, should be watched on the big screen, you know, because the second time you can watch it on your TV sets, you know, but the first time to really get the big, you know, the full effects, it will go on a big screen. And of course, you know, we watch movie in planes, you know, and the screen is so small. But as you said, we have to adapt to what you have. And yeah, if you have big theaters or multiplex, good. If you don't have them, you have to do without them, you know, and maybe try to, because I don't remember the name of the country. They said, okay, but now even in France, you know, they have operas live in the cinemas. You know, you can go to the opera, and if you don't have an opera house next to your place, you can go to the cinema and watch the opera as it's going, you know, which is very interesting for, let's say, people who live very far from very big opera like Opéra Garnier, Opéra Bastille. You know, they can go there and they can still get the, you know, because they are just in the setting of the opera. So maybe we'll have to redefine what the cinema, and they do concerts in cinema now, and you know, events. So it brings people to the theaters, and
well, they have a church. They
yeah,
go-
exactly.
They become churches right now.
Yes.
So we're in the last few minutes, around about 5 minutes as we close. I just want to apologize because Sandile, who was supposed to be with us, had a death in his family, and so he couldn't be with us. And Azza, who is the festival director of the Luxor Film Festival, also is in Morocco, and she was struggling to get online, so she couldn't join us. But I want to thank the two of you because I think we had quite a robust conversation, notwithstanding that it was just us, and so much to share, both Karine and Leila. You have both of you doing so many different things, but equally important. And just for us, I think for AIM, for the African Motion Film Festival, to know what African producers and professionals are doing on the continent and not on the continent, in the diaspora, because that's where you are, Karine, and that the work that UNESCO has been doing in trying to bring together an understanding of the film industry. I think this is important. I also know, Leila, you sit on a body in South Africa, if you can tell us a little bit about that, because whether it's the IPO or CESFED, but you are also working at trying to help, I suppose, people understand the importance of cinema, of the creative industries. Just talk to us a little bit of that as you give us your closing remarks, and then I'll come to Karine. Leila.
Well, yeah, I think we're all trying to shift, we're all trying to adapt. And I think what Karine was saying is very important. The space itself, spaces and how we occupy spaces are shifting, and what cinema is used for, what television is used for, what all of these things mean to us is becoming different. And I think what really dictates that is our audiences, is the people and the culture and the life. And I think it's a very beautiful and exciting time. I am on the National Arts Council here in South Africa, as well as the IPO and CESFED. And it's been a struggle. It's been a struggle because people have different needs. Even as filmmakers, we have different needs. We have different battles that we're fighting. While we've seen a decline in international productions coming to shoot here, we've also seen a massive increase now in the support of local content. So it's been fascinating to witness and be a part of. But I do think that we're getting stronger. We're getting more sure of ourselves and sure of our narratives, and the world is going to have to listen. Yeah, so it's been fantastic being here and speaking to you and engaging with you both. But yeah, I think it's a wonderful time to be African.
So usually at the end of the show, because the show is the F show, and F is for my name, Firdaus, but I also say F is for freedom. And we ask our guests to say what F means to them. So before you tell me, Leila, I'm going to ask Karine to give us her closing remarks. And then Karine, you will also tell me what F stands for, and I'll come back to Leila.
Okay. Well, I would really, we had our opening ceremony at UNESCO, so they are very favorable to Pavillon Afrique, and they know that culture is essential to the world. And, you know, I would encourage everybody to read this report. You know, if you're in the film industry in Africa, you have, I mean, it's, I don't know how many pages, but I read it. I need to read it again, you know, just to take the essence of it, because sometimes you may want to make a decision, but you don't know the figures, and you may ask people, and they will only give you their feeling, and then you have really figures. And I hope that the countries who couldn't participate in this report because they didn't have figures, They will, for the next years, begin working on it so that they really help their film professionals in each country so that they can really reveal themselves, because it's most needed. And I can see, I was in Guadeloupe 2 weeks ago, and I saw all the talents there, and some of them are already working with Africa. So I was so surprised, because I say, how did you connect? And people get connection because when they like something, I guess with the social media, they manage to talk and they manage to work together. And if you work with Guadeloupe, you're working with France, so you have all of these grants, and when you work with Martinique, it's the same. And I mean, what I want to say is that we have to work with each other, get to learn each other, and the F would mean for me fraternity among all of the African filmmakers and the diaspora as well, fraternity.
Thank you, Leila. And Leila, would you just tell people what IPO stands for, and SESFED if you could, since we have an international.
SESFED is audience, of course. SESFED is the South African Screen Federation, and the IPO is the Independent Producers Organization.
And what is your F?
So I was thinking about it. One of the key things for me and for us as a company has been the word fearless, and to say not to be fearless, but to fear less. So I think that would be my F word for the night. To fear less.
To fear less. That's wonderful. I want to thank both of you for a wonderful conversation, and I think that our audience would have learned quite a bit. We've traveled, almost traversed the continent and the rest of the globe. And I want to encourage everybody to please go and watch AIM, the African Motion Film Festival, which is on currently. Some of the films might be geo-blocked, but some of them are open. So you can go online and check. And the discussions are always open for everybody to listen and to participate and to send in questions. I think this is the way that we grow our industry, that we grow filmmakers and storytellers. And I want to thank the Kenyan Film for the trailer and for us to see really how cleverly they used Zoom to have an entire movie, and that it really played, you know, all the emotions were there, the characterization, the storytelling. So it is possible that we can move from live action in what we say, and I suppose into animation, but really kind of having live action on a digital screen, which was quite exciting. Thank you so much, everybody. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.